Countries around the world breathed a sigh of relief when oil prices, which were already falling, dipped a further 15% on Tuesday. The drop came after U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said that the U.S. Navy had escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz. However, Wright has since deleted that social media post, and his claim has also been rejected by both the White House and the U.S. Navy.
I was made aware of this post. I haven't had a chance to talk to the Energy Secretary about it directly. However, I know the post was taken down pretty quickly, and I can confirm that the U.S. Navy has not escorted a tanker or a vessel at this time, though, of course, that's an option the president has said he will absolutely utilize if and when necessary at the appropriate time.
In that now deleted post, the secretary wrote, and I quote, "President Trump is maintaining stability of global energy during the military operations against Iran." The U.S. Navy successfully escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz to ensure oil remains flowing to global markets. Earlier on Tuesday, Iran had warned that not a single liter of oil will be exported from the Gulf while the war continues. The IRGC Navy rejected Wright's claim, saying the U.S. official had lied and warned that any movement by the U.S. Navy and its allies will be targeted by Iranian missiles and submarines. Iran's Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf also took a dig at Wright. He put up a social media post saying, and I quote, "An oil tanker crossed the Strait of Hormuz escorted by U.S. Navy ships, maybe on PlayStation." Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi accused the American official of posting fake news to manipulate markets. He said that the war the Americans and Israelis had started would lead to an inflationary tsunami. And he added that the war will lead to the biggest oil shortfall in history, bigger than the Arab oil embargo, Iran's Islamic Revolution, and the 1990 Kuwait invasion combined. Nearly 1/5 of the global oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. The Energy Secretary's post was seen as a display of the power of U.S. naval forces and was believed to be the first such operation since the start of the U.S. and Israel's war on Iran. Crude prices have seen sharp fluctuations since the start of the war due to fears of supply disruptions. Prices surged 30% on Monday to nearly $120 a barrel before retreating after Trump suggested the war could end soon. Oil prices started to fall further after Wright's announcement. At around 1700 GMT, Brent crude futures were down 15% at $84.09 a barrel. But the prices rose after Chris Wright's post was deleted. Let's talk to our correspondent Susan Teherani, who's now joining us live from New York. Susan, it's good to see you. There is a lot of back and forth happening, especially at the Congress, because Congress or the senators are really not happy with the statements that U.S. officials are making about this war, and also the statements that are coming from officials. You see the Energy Secretary saying one thing on the other, and then the White House rebuffing and rebutting that statement. What's really going on?
Yeah, that's a valid point. Those are all valid points. In terms of Capitol Hill, really the agreement and disagreement fall on partisan lines, not surprisingly, of course. There is growing concern, though, among the Republicans that the longer this war drags on, the more it takes away from other stories and achievements of the Trump administration leading into the midterms. And although the midterms are months away, there's no doubt that those elections are on the White House's mind. Another thing on the White House's mind, of course, is oil prices, which directly affects gas prices here at home for the American public. And while it was interesting that the Energy Department blamed that inaccurate post on social media on a staffer that said that the United States had sort of escorted a ship through the Strait of Hormuz, it still didn't take away from the uncertainty that many people feel right now regarding the strait and its security. And I think that is why, as you reported earlier, the president decided to put out the statement about destroying a number of Iranian ships that would have been at risk of mining other ships in the Strait of Hormuz, again, trying to ease energy markets and sort of offset that news that we had heard earlier in the day, which impacted oil prices to such a great extent and brought them down. But it appears that with the president's comments regarding the preemptive strike on these Iranian ships, which I think until about 30 minutes ago, it was 16 ships, that the U.S. says that it had intelligence that they may have been preparing to mine other ships in the Strait of Hormuz. I think those oil prices are going to remain pretty low and steady for the time being. But there's no doubt that this fog of war, of course, has not only caused so much death, destruction, and so much talk about what's happening on the battlefield kinetically, but also this sort of information war that's going on as well. That can't be underestimated in this day and age.
Well, Susan, apart from the talk about oil and the Strait of Hormuz, there's also another discussion that is going on in the United States, and that is troop deployment in Iran. There's a senator from the Democratic side who said that there is a possibility that the U.S. may deploy their troops on the ground in Iran. But there are some Americans who are not really up for that. What's the debate all about, and what are Americans saying about that?
Yeah, so that we learned about that because of that closed-door meeting that White House officials had with senators on Capitol Hill, and that was one of the issues that allegedly was brought up during that meeting, that there could be a possibility of American troops on the ground in Iran. And I will tell you, that is one aspect that the majority of American people are really not on board with. I'm not sure how you can sell something like that to the American people when it comes to this war. I mean, the issue of Iran being a direct threat to the United States, the issue of Iran not having nuclear weapons, for the majority of the public, they, at least until now, somewhat support President Trump's initiative. But when the issue of boots on the ground comes into the conversation, that's a whole other ballgame, a whole other ballpark. Of course, we haven't heard accurate reporting or information coming out of the White House, but if and should something like that happen, unless, which it's highly unlikely, it could be something like what happened in Venezuela, people's memories go back to Afghanistan and Iraq, and everyone remembers the quagmire that the United States was in those countries, and they don't want that.
All right, Susan Teherani, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Susan Teherani is our correspondent in New York. Thank you.